They say the first thing you learn in law school is how to lie with confidence. The second thing? How to smile at the person you're planning to destroy. I should know I mastered both, especially when it came to Ethan Hale. He wasn't just another attorney. He was the attorney. Ruthless, brilliant, devastatingly charismatic, and everything I swore I hated. Which is why it made absolutely no sense that, whenever he walked into a courtroom, my pulse jumped like I was the one about to be cross-examined. I told myself it was loathing, hatred, a deep-seated rivalry that came from watching him smirk when judges leaned his way, from knowing he was the kind of man who could twist a jury's heartstrings with just the lift of an eyebrow. But deep down, in a place I buried under layers of denial, I knew it was something else, something I had no right to feel, because Ethan Hale was dangerous. And if I wasn't careful, he'd ruin more than just my cassesh ruin me. The night everything changed started like any other battle between us. Loud, messy, and intoxicating. We'd been facing each other in court for weeks, representing opposite sides of a corporate fraud case that had half of New York buzzing. I was fresh to the game compared to him, a public defender turned private, still carrying the fire of wanting to do good in a system that didn't always allow it. Ethan, on the other hand, was playing for the giant slick, wealthy firms that cared about winning more than truth. That day, I'd nailed a cross-examination. The kind that made jurors lean forward, eyes wide. The kind that proved my client wasn't the villain they were being painted as. And for once, Ethan looked rattled. Just a flicker in his expression, but enough to feel like a victory. "You're getting sloppy, Hale," I muttered when we crossed paths in the corridor after adjournment. He smiled, the kind of smile that cut like a blade. "Or maybe you're getting reckless, Carter." The way he said my name, Carter Ross, always felt like he was tasting it, dragging it across his tongue like a secret. I hated the way it made my chest tighten. I hated the way I wanted to hear it again. So I did what I always did. I rolled my eyes, brushed past him, and told myself I didn't notice when his gaze lingered a second too long. By the time I left the courthouse, the city had turned into a nightmare. The October storm had rolled in fast sheets of rain, slamming the streets, thunder rattling the sky. My umbrella flipped inside out within seconds, useless. I cursed under my breath, clutching my briefcase, my only thought being to find a cab. That's when his car pulled up. Sleek, black, the kind of car that screamed privilege. The passenger window rolled down, and there he was. Ethan Hale, hair slightly damp, tie loosened, looking like sin carved into a man. "You'll drown out here," he called over the rain. "I'll take my chances," I shot back, though my suit was already soaked through. "Get in, Ross. Don't be stupid." Every instinct screamed at me to say no, but lightning cracked overhead, close enough to vibrate through the pavement, and before I knew it, I was yanking the door open and sliding inside. The leather interior smelled like cedar and rain. Too warm, too intimate. He didn't say a word as we pulled into traffic, windshield wipers fighting the storm. The silence stretched until it was unbearable. "Why did you stop?" I asked finally, my voice sharper than I meant. His jaw flexed. "Because I'm not heartless." I let out a bitter laugh. "Funny, considering you make a living proving otherwise." That earned me a sideways glance, sharp, amused, unreadable. "You really don't get me, do you? And you want me to?" For a moment, the storm outside seemed to fade, and all I could hear was the low hum of the car, the soft hitch of his breath. His gaze dropped to my mouth, then flicked back to the road so fast I almost thought I imagined it. Almost. The power went out across half the city that night. Bridges jammed with traffic, subway lines shut down. When Ethan's building loomed ahead, towering and lit only by dim emergency generators, I realized he wasn't dropping me off. He was taking me home. "Don't flatter yourself," he said as if reading my mind. "No cabs in this weather. You'll freeze to death before you make it 3 blocks. And you just happen to have a spare room?" I asked dryly. He smirked. "Something like that." I should have refused. Should have stormed back into the rain just to prove a point. But exhaustion hit me like a brick, and the thought of standing in that storm even 1 second longer was unbearable. So I followed him inside. His apartment was everything mine wasn't: spacious, sleek, filled with art I couldn't name in windows that overlooked the chaos of the storm. He tossed me a towel and watched as I rubbed rain from my hair, his gaze lingering too long, too heavy. "You're staring," I said. "Maybe I am." The words should have cut. Instead, they sank into me, sharp and electric. "Why?" I asked, hating the crack in my voice. He stepped closer, close enough that the heat of him drowned out the chill still clinging to my skin. "Because I've spent months pretending I don't notice you, Ross. And I'm getting tired of pretending." My heart stopped, literally stopped. And when it started again, it was too loud, too fast, too dangerous. "Ethan," I started, but the thunder outside drowned out my voice. And then his hand was on my jaw, his thumb brushing water from my cheek, his eyes burning into mine like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. That was the first time Ethan Hale kissed me, and it felt like losing a war I never wanted to win. The kiss should have been a mistake. I told myself it was an accident, a slip, nothing more than heat and exhaustion and the storm outside pushing us together. But the truth was written in every second we didn't pull away. His mouth was warm, insistent, and it felt like it had been waiting for mine all along. When he finally drew back, his forehead still pressed to mine, I was shaking. "We shouldn't," I whispered. "I know," he murmured. "But I don't care." And just like that, every line we'd drawn, every rule we'd sworn to follow, dissolved like ink in the rain. The next morning was worse. Sunlight cut through his windows, spilling across his sheets, and for the first time I saw him not as Ethan Hale, my rival, but Ethan human, fallible, dangerous only because he made me feel something I had no right to feel. "You're staring," he said groggily, eyes half-lidded. "You're still insufferable." I shot back, though my voice betrayed me with softness. His smile was lazy, unguarded. "And yet you're still here." I should have left, walked out before the day reminded us who we were. But I didn't. Of course, reality came crashing in soon enough. The case dragged on, uglier than before, our firms circling like wolves. Every time we faced each other in court, my chest ached with everything I couldn't say. Every time he demolished a witness, I wanted to hate him. Every time he smirked across the aisle, I wanted to kiss him. And people noticed. Colleagues whispered about how tense the courtroom felt whenever we were both present, how we circled each other like magnets fighting not to collide. One night, after a particularly brutal session where Ethan exposed one of my witness's weaknesses, I stormed into his office, slamming the door behind me. "You didn't have to humiliate her like that," I snapped. His gaze was cool, measured. "It's my job, Ross. I don't get to go easy on someone just because you want me to. It's not just about winning." He stood, crossing the room until we were toe-to-toe. "That's where you're wrong. In my world, it is." Something broke then, frustration, longing, rage, love, all tangled into one unbearable knot. I shoved him hard enough that his back hit the desk. He just stared at me, chest heaving. "God, you infuriate me," I spat. "Then stop wanting me." His voice was hoarse, almost broken, and instead of answering, I kissed him like I was drowning. The secret burned brighter the longer it went on. Late-night meetings that weren't really meetings. Heated arguments that ended with mouths pressed together, fingers digging into suits. The thrill of it, the terror of being caught, it all felt like a cliff we were running toward at full speed. But cliffs have edges. The day the verdict came, my client was acquitted. It should have been my triumph, my moment. Instead, when I looked across the courtroom and saw Ethan's expression tight, unreadable, wounded, I felt no victory at all. Afterward, he found me in the corridor. "Congratulations," he said flatly. "That's all you have to say?" His jaw clenched. "What do you want me to say, Ross? That I'm proud of you? That I love how you destroyed me in front of half the legal community?" The word love hung between us like smoke. "I didn't want to destroy you," I said quietly. "But you did." His voice cracked, and before I could reach for him, he walked away. Weeks passed. No calls, no chance encounters, no storm to shove us back into the same orbit. I buried myself in work, telling myself it was for the best. that whatever we'd had wasn't real, that enemies couldn't be lovers, not in a city like this, not under eyes that judged every move. And yet, every night I heard the echo of his voice. Maybe I am staring. Maybe I am tired of pretending. It was winter when I saw him again. Snow dusted the city, softening even its sharpest edges. I was leaving the courthouse when I spotted him across the street, coat collar turned up, hair kissed by snowflakes. He looked tired, older, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Before I knew it, I was crossing the street. "Ethan," I called. He turned, and just like that, the walls crumbled. We stood in the middle of the sidewalk, strangers brushing past us, the city moving on while we froze in place. His eyes searched mine, wide open, no mask this time. "I shouldn't be here," he said, though his voice trembled. "Neither should I." And then, softly, desperately, "I missed you." The words stole the breath from my chest. "I missed you too." We didn't kiss right away. Instead, we walked, through streets lit with Christmas lights, through the hush of snow falling against glass. He told me about cases, about how empty his apartment felt. I told him about the silence after a win that wasn't really a win. And somehow, in all that talking, we found our way back. At the foot of his building, he stopped, turning to me. "If we do this, Ross, it won't be easy. People will talk. They'll judge. We'll have to fight harder than we ever have." I met his gaze steady. "We've been fighting each other for so long. Maybe it's time we fought for each other." For the first time since I'd known him, Ethan Hale smiled without a trace of arrogance. Just warmth. Just love. And when he pulled me into his arms, right there under the falling snow, I knew it wasn't the end of a war. It was the beginning of something worth every battle. Months later, when whispers did start about us leaving court together, about rival firms suddenly connected by something more than cases, I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding. Ethan was more than my rival now. He was my partner, my storm, my home. And every time his hand found mine under the table, every time his lips brushed mine in the quiet of our apartment, I remembered the night it all began. The storm that should have drowned me, but instead brought me to life. Love doesn't care about rules, about rivalries, about the walls we build to keep ourselves safe. Love crashes through like thunder, floods like rain, and leaves you with no choice but to surrender. And Carter Ross, sworn enemy of Ethan Hale, had finally surrendered. To him, to us, to a future we'd carve out, no matter who stood against it. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.